Today we're going to be talking about 3 underrated things that you need to be paying attention to in your relationship.
I've said this before, it's like a highlight reel when you're dating. You're doing fun things together, your feelings and emotions are like at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Then you get married and it's still awesome, but there's a lot more like regular life moments.
If you're dating and you realize your significant other is drastically different than you and how they rest, make sure to pay attention to that. And so I think that you should always take an inventory of all that you're giving your time to make sure your main things or your main people are getting your main time. I've recently been thinking about us, and there's like probably at least 3 areas that I've realized make us compatible that I don't think we knew how important those 3 things are when we were dating, but it's almost like we feel the importance of it almost every day.
Like marriage has really brought that.
Yeah, like I feel like before marriage I couldn't have known how important these 3 things were, but now that we're in it doing life together, I realized that like when we were dating or engaged, I saw signs or like traits of yours that would point to this, but there was almost no way to know it fully.
Yeah, because when you're dating,
until we got married.
It's like, I've said this before, it's like a highlight reel when you're dating. You're doing fun things together, your feelings and emotions are like at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Then you get married and it's still awesome, but there's a lot more like regular life moments together.
So we should talk about the 3 things.
Okay, tell me them.
The first thing is how we work. This is pretty unique. Both Mariah and I have a high work ethic or have high work ethics. And this manifests in how we spend our on time in terms of work, but also our off time. So probably 4 out of 7 evenings a week we'll be working on our laptops or at work events. And I realized that like if you had a big challenge with that, or you were someone who almost like valued your evenings or valued a design for your day that included as limited work as possible, that could be hard for us.
Yeah, there'd be so much more tension.
Or vice versa.
There'd be so much more tension in the relationship. I even find too, like now that we have a baby, it's almost like he's requiring a little bit more of that from us.
100%.
He's the one that's asking for it.
Yeah.
It's not me asking it for it from you or you asking for it from me. And so we've kind of had to like face the facts that our life does have to shift and change eventually a little bit. But yeah, I think because we both enjoy like boots to the ground, hard work, working on projects together, we've been able to really be chill, I guess, about that being our life. Or not even just that, but enjoy it.
Yeah, and I realized that we don't like a life that is too empty. Like we like full plate in terms of how we go about our work, how we even schedule our social life, how we engage our families. Something that I've recently been thinking about is it's like a working concept, but the concept of work ethic compatibility. We can refer to it as WEC.
Okay.
It's this idea of finding someone, like a romantic partner, that is compatible to them in context of work ethic. So this doesn't necessarily mean we both work hard and a lot, or we both work a little and not that much. But this could mean I work a lot and I'm married to a person who wants to support me in my high volume of work.
Yeah.
And is okay with it and is encouraged and inspired by it.
Yeah.
But it could also mean someone who works hard. So I think that something that's important for everyone to take a moment to think about is what they need in context of work, but also what they need the other person that they're in relationship with to be in context of work. So a couple case studies. One case study, in a couple, the guy's a doctor, the girl's in finance. They come together, they say, we both want to spend the next 10 years giving all of our time to our career. And that's what we both need our partners to be doing, and that's what I need to be doing. They're compatible when it comes to work ethic. With that said, there could be another like case study, for example, where the girl's in finance, the guy is a freelance photographer with a lot of free time because he just has a lot of high-skilled clients, and he has evenings completely free, but she works into the evenings. But he is saying, you know what, I'm okay with you working into the evenings because I appreciate the time being able to get dinner set up for us and then also lean into some of my hobbies. both couples are compatible in terms of work ethic. I think sometimes we think, oh, to be compatible in context of work ethic, they need to be the same. But it's just like, no, we just need to be able to appreciate our own expression when it comes to work, and then our partner's expression when it comes to work.
Yeah.
So for us, we happen to be similar in terms of how we express our work ethic, and that works for us.
And even though this is something that we didn't necessarily pay attention to too much in dating, but really valued in marriage, I think it is something that you can definitely see in the dating phase. What I would pay attention to is like if there's any frustrations that come up for you. Like, oh, this person works a lot and it really bugs me. Or, oh, this person kind of is free a lot and I wish they had more going on.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't feel anything of that. Maybe you feel super happy with how things are going. But I think it is worth paying attention to in the dating phase.
Yeah, this is super like subjective. So we don't want to be overly formulaic or prescriptive.
Yeah.
But it is important for you to pay attention to, like what Mariah said, the friction. Be mindful of those friction points, because usually the friction points are like pointers to a deeper reality that you want to pay attention to. So, yeah.
Okay, what's the next thing?
Second thing, so the first thing is how you work. The second thing is how you rest. So something that we realized is that we're pretty diverse in the different ways we rest, but we're pretty like unified in what we like. So we're not on like far opposite sides of the spectrum. I know there's some people, I have friends who the most restful thing they can do is be around a lot of people, big groups, connecting with a bunch of friends, going to events or whatever. Whereas for me, after a long like day of work or a long busy week, usually I want to be a bit more recluse, be a bit quieter, chill out a bit with a couple close friends or family, or just with you and our son.
Yeah, rest is so important. Again, something that when we were dating, didn't really pay attention to. I think because we didn't have much of it. We were long distance, and so anytime we had together, we like soaked it up to the max. Like we weren't really chilling. So yeah, but it's worked out. I feel like in marriage, we have very similar ways that we like to rest, and that works for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like, again, pay attention to after a long day of work, what do you naturally like to do? And then if you're dating someone, what does your significant other like to do after a long day of work? If you're dating and you realize your significant other is drastically different than you and how they rest, make sure to pay attention to that. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I do think that there might need to be some give on either side to make sure you guys are giving each other what each person needs.
I feel like too, it's beyond rest after like a hard day of work.
Yeah.
But even like rest after a hard season. So there has been times for us where we've been like really full on, really busy, and we have like a time of the year where we can go on vacation. We kind of both agree like we don't really want to go on like an adventure trip after a busy season. We want to kind of chill at a beach, just relax. We don't want a lot on the schedule. We just want to be in the warm weather, relaxing and chilling. Maybe doing a few fun things here and there. And then there's been other times in our life where we felt really geared up for an adventure trip. Like when we went to Europe, we hit a bunch of different countries and we had like lots on the itinerary, but we were both like felt good about that. And I think people function differently in terms of like bigger rest, like not just day to day, but like on yearly rest, I guess.
Yeah, it's like micro rest versus macro. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then like on the topic of vacation, I think it's important to note if one of you, for example, only likes adventure trips and one of you only likes chilling out by the beach at a resort trip, because that could be a tension point as well. Yeah. So make sure to talk about it.
I feel like a lot of couples are like that.
Again, not like not a deal breaker, but it's something worth talking about. Yeah.
Okay, what's the last
The last thing is how you recreate. So what you find recreational, whether it be hobbies, how you recharge. I think that this is similar to rest, but it's a bit different. So for example, I've grown to love recharging through like walking through the city with you and going to a restaurant or going for a run. Those are two examples of one thing that we hold in common and one thing that we'd be different on. And that's not like a tension point. We will go for walks and go out for dinner, and we both are feeling recharged at the end of that. I will have my own individual way of recharging through running.
Yeah.
And you don't join me in that. And it's like...
And Daniel's really sad about that. Sometimes we run together.
What would you say is something that you do that is a recharge mechanism that you do by yourself? Like you're running.
I don't know if I have anything that's like so personal to me. I would do it separate from you. You know? Unless you can think of one for me.
Yeah. I feel like there's certain like forms of content that you would
I guess
take
I like to watch
without
YouTube
me.
Without you.
And then the other thing was like sauna/gym. But I feel like a lot of that is like stage of life stuff.
Yeah.
Because
I go to the gym and sauna alone, but we would do that together, but just we can't because of our baby. So.
And then also because the sauna is in the
girl
gender
side.
specific change rooms.
So we can't do it together.
So yeah, there's no cross gender,
Sauna.
intergender
Thank God,
sauna.
honestly.
Yeah, it's probably good. It's probably good. It's probably good that it's separate. Anyways.
But yeah, so we have our own things that we do to recharge, but I feel like we also really like being together.
Yeah.
Like just being together is recharging for
Yeah.
us. So
I would say that as well.
yeah.
It'd be really awkward if in this moment
You disagree.
I said, "Oh,
Eh.
I don't necessarily see that as something that we both appreciate." How would you respond to that?
I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm misreading you.
So we said how we work, how we rest, and how we recreate are all important things and components of our relationship that we've learned in marriage.
Yeah.
The full like depth of how much that can impact a dynamic in a relationship.
Even just one more thing for recreating, I feel like that changes in your life, like depending on the stage and depending on how old you are and like how many kids you have or don't have.
Yeah.
So that's different probably from when we met till when we're like 80. We'll probably have a lot of different stages of recreating.
Yeah, and I think that like life stage changes too. Life stage changes things too, because like, I don't know, something that I've recently said to a friend is that it's like a common phrase that goes like, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I think one caveat I would want to share is that you can have your ideal, and this is maybe for the people who have high work ethic, high octane people who feel like, oh, I love giving my all to everything that I do. I think the one, I guess, caution I would give you is going like, I'm pouring my all into my work and I'm working 70, 80 hours a week. Plus, I want to have a hobby that I'm pouring, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours a week into. Plus, I want to rest in a way that's alone. And it's kind of like, once you stack those things, sometimes you can create a life that actually pushes your significant other out of the picture.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I work, I don't know, a good amount of hours a week.
We don't count the hours.
We don't count the hours. For our own sanity. And say I work 65 hours a week. Let's just say I work 65 hours a week. And I've recently been training for a marathon. And that's required 10 to 12 hours a week in running and then also stretching. And then I also have wanted to pick up boxing. And I've done a few sessions already. But I realized that in this kind of period where I'm training for my marathon, I actually have to take a break from boxing.
Yeah.
Because I would be working, running, boxing, and then have like maybe a total of 6 hours, maybe 7 hours a week in the evening where I could spend with Mariah and our son. And I'm like, oh no, I want to be way more present than that would allow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say no to this certain area of my kind of recreation so that I can say yes to more time with my significant other, my family. And so I think that you should always take an inventory of all that you're giving your time to make sure your main things or your main people are getting your main time or your main energy.
That you're prioritizing it properly.
Yeah.
Because it can, I feel like especially in marriage, like it's like a slow burn. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it slowly happens over time. Like you choose other things over your time with your family or time with your spouse and you keep making those choices. And then 10 years later, it's like you feel like you don't even know each other anymore.
100%.
So you have to make sure you're prioritizing actual time together. And, you know, that doesn't always look like date nights.
Yes.
Sometimes it looks like just like being together at home.
100%.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap things up. But before we do that, I'd love for you to speak to the person who says, oh, right now I'm single and I give myself all to work, recreation, the people I love, and I take moments of rest. How should I be preparing for entering into a relationship if that's something that I see in my future?
I would say, like, know now maybe what your non-negotiables are. So, like, what do you want in someone else in terms of work, rest, and recreation? Know what your non-negotiables are, and then know what you're willing to, like, compromise and be flexible with. So, like, for the vacation example, it's like maybe you like sitting on the beach, but maybe you wouldn't mind actually being with someone who prefers adventures more, because it would take you out of your comfort zone, and maybe like that's not the end of the world for you. So know certain things like that, I think, going into a relationship, because it can help you to ask questions about it. It can help you to get to know the person and know if they share similar values with you, if it's going to be a good fit or not.
The last thing I'll say is that when you're making a choice to enter into a relationship, you are intentionally making the decision to make room in your life for someone else. And I think that comes in the form of your schedule, but also in your like autonomy over self. Because it's almost like you're inviting someone into your bubble, proverbially.
Yeah.
And you're inviting them to take a fraction of your time.
Yeah.
And so because they're taking a fraction of your time, it means that a fraction of your time that was once allocated towards one thing now needs to be allocated towards them. And so I would mentally prepare yourself of like, what would I change about my life, my schedule, my weekly, monthly, yearly rhythms in order to make my schedule and my overall life more realistic for a relationship.
That's good.
I think sometimes we can find ourselves in this place where we just want to add someone into our kind of flywheel of a life without saying, no, I want to be thoughtful about shifting and adjusting my life so that this person coming in doesn't feel like an imposition, but feels like a welcomed addition.
Yeah, that's good.
That is all for now. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe.
And if you like this video, make sure to share it with someone you know. But with that, we'll see you next week.